The war is no longer far away, but has spread to the home front, where Russian society is cracking and collapsing before the eyes of Putin's faction. For the Kremlin, every carefully crafted scenario is now just a fragment of illusion. And as the economy, trust, and social order disintegrate, the crisis is eating away at the core of the power they once believed impregnable. For starters, Russia's inability to defend its own territory has led police to post TikTok videos instructing citizens how to run away from drones. Worse, fear grips the Kremlin as Putin orders a nationwide internet shutdown, which he claims is aimed at stopping Ukrainian drones, but the truth lies elsewhere, to prevent Russians from seeing the true face of the war they are embroiled in. But with the economy in tatters, people's anger is boiling over. They have no jobs, and now they can't find them because the internet is down. This is tearing apart Russia's social fabric. The best workers, doctors, engineers, programmers are leaving the country in droves. This kind of social collapse is now a bigger threat to Putin's regime than any defeat on the battlefield in Ukraine. Survival Guide. The perfect demonstration of how the war is going for Mr. Putin is this TikTok video that Russian officers are making. If you hear a rustling noise in the air, or a buzzing sound like a lawnmower, and spot an object flying at an altitude of about 100 meters, it is most likely a drone. In that case, seek shelter immediately. Any building, bunker, parking lot, or even a large tree trunk can shield you from shrapnel and shockwaves. In your apartment, stay away from windows. Broken glass can cause injury. If you are in a building, go to lower floors if possible. If you are in a car and there is a UAV right in front of you, stop the car, get out of it, and take cover. When there is an explosion, drop to the ground and cover your head with your hands. It is better to crawl or roll away carefully. Absolutely do not share photos and videos of the drone on social media. This may help the enemy adjust and attack again. It is strictly forbidden to use radio communication, mobile phones, or GPS devices near the crashed UAV. If you find a UAV, do not touch it or its parts. They may contain toxic or explosive substances. Leave the area immediately. Call 112. When speaking to the operator, provide full information, the time and place of the UAV finding. You can access emergency information about UAV attacks through the application of the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations. Be vigilant and careful, and remember that safety begins with you. Root cure. Advice and the economic crisis. You know, that's not a bad idea, really. But I think that officer missed some important steps that he should share with the Russian people, so let me try. Okay, listen up. Russian citizens, if you hear a buzzing sound in the sky that sounds like a lawnmower, it's probably a drone. The best way to protect yourself in this situation is to call your leader and tell him to stop invading another sovereign state. I promise you, this works 100% of the time. If he listens, the drones will stop coming. Nearly 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity has been shut down. As a result, 57 regions are facing a fuel crisis. The situation is so bad that Russia has had to limit gasoline sales. At some gas stations, you can only buy about 10 liters. On top of that, Russia is now forced to import oil from Belarus. Putin finally got what he promised. Russia is no longer a gas station of the world, all because he couldn't stop Ukrainian UAVs. Internet disconnect trick and people's reaction. But he is trying. I have to give him credit, because in Russia we have seen something unique happening. Internet is being cut off to entire cities at random. Putin says it is to stop Ukrainian UAVs, but some Russians are not in favor of this strategy. Hear it for yourself.
In short, they shoot videos like that. I don't know how to drive, so I'll drive to the door, damn. I had a fucking meeting today. I got all dressed up. I can't get there because this work in the center. And what do you think? I just f***ing drove around? I couldn't f***ing turn. And I really can't just f***ing. So you understand. I'm f***ing going to Kamkada too. I need to go there because I don't understand. I understand in my head that I need to go somewhere to the left or right because no obvious turn on Tverskaya. But you see, I'm spinning around and in the end, I'm completely lost. I just drove for an hour. I'm not exaggerating. F***ing driving towards. I'll just f***ing run away because I need to go to Moscow Ring Road. The U-turn is, damn it, things out in Kimki. Fly without a navigator. I'm so f***ing offended. It's just a shame I can't. She's just offended, that's all.
You see, Putin is deploying GPS jamming and cell phone network disruption to throw off the drones that Ukraine is launching, which technically makes sense. Ukrainian drones rely on GPS signals and internet connections to locate and attack their targets, but ironically, it's Russians who are suffering the most, while the Ukrainians are hitting their targets just fine. And judging by the videos circulating on Russian social media, it looks like people would rather let the refinery burn down than live without internet. Honestly, you can't blame them. Tightening censorship, from drones to text messages. Now, you and I both know that Putin is using the UAV excuse just to tighten his control over Russia's internet. He wants to increase censorship because this war is not going according to plan. In fact, the Russian government has already begun blocking calls via Telegram and WhatsApp and forcing people to install a new app called Max. The problem is that this app is developed and operated entirely under the Kremlin's control. In other words, Putin's concern isn't with Ukrainian UAVs, but with what Russians are talking and sharing every day. If you live in Russia, understand that Putin can see everything, which he probably has been doing for a long time, only now he doesn't have to hide it. Shocking salary reduction, high inflation. Unfortunately for Russians, the internet may be the least of their worries. As you know from our video yesterday, many Russian companies, some of the largest, are laying off staff or reducing the work week to just 4 days a week instead of 5. That's a huge hit to workers' wages, sometimes more than 20%. Because they don't just lose that extra day. Sometimes they also lose bonuses that they could get if the company hits certain profit or revenue targets. But now the companies don't hit those, so they lose the bonus that they would have gotten and that extra day every week. That kind of pay cut is even worse when you factor in Russian inflation, specifically food inflation. The chart on the screen shows Russia's monthly food inflation. It has been above 10% for most of this year. In fact, it has only dipped below 10% in the past 2 months. But even then, it is still at 9.5%. Furthermore, these are official figures. I am sure that the Russians are not telling us the whole truth. And above all, these are aggregate figures. So they are looking at the entire food basket that the Russian central bank tracks and then calculating the inflation rate based on that. But if we start looking at individual items that Russians eat a lot of, the situation is even worse. Potatoes. The second loaf of bread, price skyrocketing. Take potatoes, for example, because they are one of the biggest staples in the Russian diet. In fact, in Russia, potatoes are often called the second loaf, a nickname. Russia is one of the top 5 potato-consuming countries in the world, and the average Russian consumes about 300 pounds, 136 kilograms of potatoes, compared to about 150 pounds, 68 kilograms in the United States. Potato prices have increased by 200% in the past 12 months. That's a tripling in just 12 months. That's the biggest increase in 23 years. And that's a big problem for families, especially if their wages are shrinking. Defense spending and bitter medicine for the people. If I ask you, what should a government do in a situation like this? They should do something to alleviate the pain that ordinary Russians are going through. Before you answer, I just want to tell you a joke that has become very popular in Russian society today. It is a way to laugh at their own situation. Russians compare the Russian army to an alcoholic father. One day, the alcoholic father came home and said to his son, "Hey son, the price of alcohol has gone up. The government just raised taxes." The boy asked, "Oh, so does that mean you're going to start drinking less?" The father replied, "No, that means you will start eating less." That's the situation Russian citizens are facing right now. According to the newly released Russian budget for 2026, taxes will go up for citizens, but that money won't go to Russians. That money will go to the Russian military. And that's a lot of money. 40% of the government's budget is going to defense and internal security. Putin doesn't want hungry Russians coming to the Kremlin and overthrowing the government. Health and environmental crisis. As if all this wasn't bad enough, Putin is cutting money from essential things because the government isn't making as much money as it used to. So things like medicine are being cut. In fact, the situation in Russia's healthcare sector is deteriorating so rapidly that they could face a major health crisis very soon. They are facing a shortage of doctors in public hospitals. The reason is that Putin does not have enough money in the budget to pay doctors a fair salary. So doctors are choosing to work in private clinics instead of public hospitals. To solve the problem, Putin doesn't want to allocate more money to the public sector. Instead, he simply bans doctors from working in private clinics. They can only do so if they also work in a public clinic. I'm starting to sense a trend. Whenever Putin has a problem, his answer is always to ban something he doesn't like. Garbage. But you see, he can't ban garbage. And that's not an analogy. It's actually happening in Russia. There's a potential garbage crisis. 30 different regions in Russia are facing a shortage of landfills. These landfills were supposed to be replaced in 2019, but Putin was too busy building up his arsenal of war weapons. So they still haven't got the new landfill that was supposed to be built 6 years ago. And now parts of Russia are littered with trash on the streets. Too bad Putin can't ban trash. But you never know, maybe tomorrow's video will mention it. On the war map, the line between offense and defense is blurring. Russia's moves are still largely unknown, while Ukraine, exhausted as it is, seems to be preparing for something bigger than the world has ever seen. Reports from the front suggest that a brutal winter may be approaching. No one knows exactly who is controlling the battle, only that all sides are calculating in silence. Behind the diplomatic statements are secret moves, plans never made public. And with each passing day, the world moves closer to a new dangerous threshold. Is this just the lull before the storm, or the beginning of an escalation not seen since World War II? The answer, perhaps, will soon be revealed. We will continue to monitor and update the latest developments. Don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes just one news you missed today can be the turning point of the whole war tomorrow.